All right. I don't know who's doing those guitars. I just want to listen to them jam out. But how we doing, guys? Welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm one of your hosts, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me is my starting host, Wild Ute. How you doing, Ute?
Doing well. What's up, y'all?
And then we have I'll also say host, Immaculate View, who's in charge of all of
Promotion.
our stats and all the other stuff. You're in charge of that today. I promoted you. So
Oh
I hope
no,
you came loaded.
responsibility.
I want to thank everybody for being here early. I know it's a little bit early on a Tuesday evening, but there's a lot we want to cover, and we want to make sure we have time to do that. So before we get started, I want to give a couple minutes over to Ute and Immaculate. Catch us up on how you guys this weekend went and what you thought about the college football playoff championship game.
It was a great weekend. The college football championship game. Oh, what a battle. I mean, you've got to hand it to the Michigan Wolverines. Played physical football. Penix never really got going, it felt like all day. In my household, we were definitely rooting for Washington to win that football game for a myriad of reasons. And after the game was over and Michigan got the trophy, Harbaugh said some weird, awkward things. Just some really weird. It's a weird guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the wife wasn't too happy that Michigan won too, but still, got to give kudos to where it's due. Michigan was the best roster team this year, no doubt about it. They won this game, they won the playoffs, so kudos to all the Wolverine fans out there. And yeah, what a heck of a season though. Sad it's over.
Yeah, I can't now. Now it's that heavy sigh, and what we have 250 days or something to wait for the next college football playoff game. How about you, Immaculate? You were in finer confines, I think, in Arizona. What was your game night like last night?
Well, yep, down here. I mean, it is getting a little chilly down here too, but probably not as chilly as it is for everyone else in this country right now. But in terms of the game, very good game. I enjoyed it. I was watching and once again people saying how it was a boring game or whatever. It's like not watching the same game I am. But I was pulling for Washington, but at the same time, I gotta admit, there's a little part of me that was like, yeah, I wouldn't be too upset if Michigan wins because that's going to be one hell of a controversy and drama. And hey, dealing with controversy and drama is what we do here. So we'll get to see what the fallout of that is. We're going to see if the NCAA is going to dare now go after them while they've got all these other big problems going on, including the convention this week. So I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for tomorrow. So we'll looking forward to that.
So let's talk about that really quick. You touched on it. Michigan and their standing in 5 years. They might have their championship set aside, but nobody's going to forget they won the game. Nobody's going to forget that they were in the game to play and win. So, I mean, outside of the disappointment of Washington losing, I just sort of jumped ahead in time a little bit and said to myself, when they have this season's game set aside, like they did to USC, nobody forgets. Nobody forgets that USC had those championships in the 2000s, and they're not going to forget Michigan, are they?
No, they're never going to forget Michigan. You guys, Michigan was the best team this year and everything. And we can debate if that was fair. We can obviously they got caught cheating. They got punished for cheating by the Big Ten. The NCAA is going to drop that too. The repercussions of that. Could you argue that the recruiting was juiced for many years because of the cheating scandal, because of Connor Stalions over the last few years? I think he's been on really technically on Michigan's, at least on their support staff as a volunteer since 2015, but he really ramped up after the 2010 COVID season when Michigan went 2-4. And all of a sudden they go on this remarkable run, 3 straight playoffs and everything. There's a lot of controversy. I mean, if Connor Stalions never showed up, does Michigan have the same team?
Right.
No one's going to ever know that, right? But at the end of the day, no one's going to care either. It's all about results. And Michigan is the champions, the best team. So it is what it is.
Immaculate, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think this is going to carry forward for quite a while. And first off, in terms of Michigan, I think they've brought forward the old style of football and brought it back to the new. I mean, that's just kind of how football goes. As people create new ways to play the game, that wins, and then others change to that, and all the defenses then change to go against that. And so now we're at a point where That style of football, I think, is very effective because defenses are not tooled against it. They're a little more tooled up to go against the pass. So they may have started a change in college football. We shall see. In terms of NCAA going after them, first off, it's a CFP title, and the NCAA decides to, say, yeah, you got the NCAA title too. But if they just not to give it to them, what does it mean? Like, especially if they don't do a big investigation, people are just going to look at it as nothing, and it'll actually hurt the NCAA maybe more than they're already facing. So it's a quandary. I do not know what they're going to decide to do. It'll probably not be the best of decisions because it's the NCAA, but we'll see. I think it starts this week.
Does the NCAA end up taking away this national championship and the record books immaculate from Michigan?
If this was any normal time, probably. But considering everything they're facing, I don't know if this is even their biggest worry. And
that's true. The timing has something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, and they face the possibility that by doing so, you are giving ammunition to the folks who are trying to tear governance away from you. They got to be careful to not give ammunition to multiple groups, the autonomous conferences, to NIL collectives, to the players, to government, we're talking about an NCAA that does not read the room very well as it is. And right now they're surrounded by, predators, basically.
I didn't give my opinion about those two things. I think Michigan definitely deserved to be there. They no doubt they put a beat down on Washington, which proved they're the best team. But when it comes to what the NCAA does to them, I don't think anybody cares. Like I said, everybody knows that USC won those two championships in the aughts, and both of them were using the same players, and yet who cares? They vacated one championship. That doesn't matter to USC. They're still telling their recruits they have 38 national championships or whatever it is. So I just don't think it matters. I think it matters to people who care about stats and stuff like that, but they beat Washington convincingly last night. If it had gone to even overtime, it might have been a different look at it. But they were winning from jump last night. It was crazy.
You know what? It matters to clean programs. I'm talking about programs that aren't doing anything scandalous, anything illegal based on the NCAA rules.
Right.
It's showing that, hey, you're going to take a huge step back if you don't play this game and you don't start cheating and get up to speed. Because the national champions just went 15-0, and they had a scandal in the middle of the year. They were not punished for it. They're going to have recruiting benefits. They're going to have all the prestige that goes along with this.
Right.
And so it shows me that that we're going in a direction where there's going to be less and less character in the sport, which is really disappointing, honestly. I mentioned before that I didn't think Michigan deserved even a chance of getting in the playoff because of that. They won the championship. They're getting all the glory, and I think it's completely bunk, guys, that they even had a chance to even play in that game, given what happened this year. And we don't even know the extent of the cheating yet. I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Right. The NCAA is going to have that information, but at the end of the day, we live in a forward-looking culture. It's all about today. No one's going to care what happened a couple of years ago, and the NCAA drops the hammer. And it's just extremely disappointing as a sports fan to see it, honestly. And I hate it for college football. I think it's bunk again. Michigan was the best team, but I would argue that they juiced the recruiting for 3 years based on the success they've had on the field, based on that stuff that was going on. So I think it should have a big asterisk right there on top of it. And I feel so passionately about this, actually. I wrote a poem.
Give it
I wrote
to
a poem
us.
about
Michigan.
Michigan.
I like poems. I like poems.
Time.
Go ahead.
I was considering Michigan today, and I was just thinking through. I really like old King James English, guys. Okay, so if you'll bear with me here, this is an ode to Michigan. Okay. In maize and blue, a conquest grand, 15 battles won by hand. Harbaugh's fire, a burning zeal, Corum's charge, the foreman's steel. McCarthy's arm, A lightning fight unfurled the pigskin, bathed in light. But serpents' whispers, shadows creep, Connor's stallions' secrets deep. Scouting blight a hidden thorn, victory's crown forever shorn. The chalice raised, a bitter wine, cheers and tears a twisted line. For glory's grasp, what price they paid, a hollow triumph, dreams delayed. Let banners wave, let horns resound, but hearts are heavy, souls unwound. For trust is lost and honor fled, the Wolverines with shadows tread.
Wow. That is awesome, Philip. I actually had my hair on the back of my neck.
Yeah,
with
that was intense. I was like, this is good. That's pretty
That
good.
is fantastic. So you need to publish that, right? Get it out on Twitter.
Maybe, yeah.
I think you
I
should.
marked this
Throw it
video.
out there. Yeah.
I marked this video, so it's right at the 10-minute mark. If we wanted to cut that up and put it on YouTube, but or on even on Twitter, I mean, that is fantastic.
You know what? And like again, that's kind of the summation of the Michigan season. I do think that they had the best roster.
Right.
But still, what we talked about, I think that matters too. We'll see what happens in our sport in the future and everything, but there's major incentives to do whatever it takes to bend the rules to win.
So let's talk about this year.
Yeah.
Those two things that actually have happened this year that are examples of that. First, SMU buys its way into a power conference. Never happened before.
Right.
One of the power conferences, one of the ones that's the oldest in the entire country, disappears overnight because of greed and mismanagement. And now we have an entire program. Some would argue the number one program in all of college athletics, University of Michigan football, wins the latest championship under a heavy, heavy cloud of scandal. So those three things by themselves, I think, mark a significant turning point in the age of modern day college athletics. Do you guys disagree with that?
What do you think, Immaculate?
I think we're in a moment in time where everything is in flux. And like you're saying, I think 5-10 years from now, it's going to be very different. So these are all good points, and I agree on all of those. And yet I think what we're going into here in the next couple of years will dwarf even that.
Good things to think about. We're going to have to share all this with Moen when he finally comes in. I'm not sure where he was at tonight. Don't want people to think we forgot about him. But we're just continuing on. We're going to marshal on without Moen's show with us, at least for now. Later in the show, hopefully we're going to have Jen Knowles stopping by. We're going to talk Florida State realignment a little bit when she's here. So everybody can look forward to that. That's coming. Let's move on to our next topic item, and that is Harbaugh's last game. We said before that we thought that Harbaugh was done either way. I personally think he's in the NFL. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, I definitely think this is his last game in college football. I think he's taking either the Raiders or Chargers job. Harbaugh seems kind of like a Raiders guy to me. Like, his aura and everything. I think the Raiders is a really good fit for him. I don't think there's any way that he's going to go back to Michigan, and partly due because the NCAA sanctions that might drop, right? And taint everything. So if he leaves, he got the championship. Michigan's hanging the banner right now, and he can take off, and they can deal with the repercussions afterwards. So he kind of wants to escape the scandal and everything and move on to the next thing. That's his MO. And he'll be successful in the pros. He already was when he was with the 49ers.
Yeah.
And if he goes to the Raiders or Chargers, I have no doubt that he's going to make a playoff team out of those squads pretty soon. So I think he's going pro, and it's probably going to be, we'll hear that over the next couple weeks to month.
Immaculate.
With him winning, I don't know what's really keeping him back anymore. I do believe he wanted that. His own comments after the game, talking about how his father had and his brother had won a Super Bowl, and how he now gets to sit at the big table. I think that meant a lot to him. He was joking about it, but that was on his mind. But now that he's got it, and he's given that to Michigan, I kind of think that, at that point in time, it's like, does he want to build a dynasty, or did he just want to get a championship? I think he might be moving. If I had to bet, that's what I would do. But it's Harbaugh. I mean, that guy, you really can't predict what's on Harbaugh's mind until he just straight up tells you, and he'll tell you. So we'll probably find out here pretty soon.
Let's do a quick shout out. We're a few minutes into the show. I want to say hi to everybody who's here early. That would be Glenn Lumens says hi here from the Philippines. We got BR's in the house. Good to see you, BR Green. Good to have you here. MH5's in the house. He says, if the A4 pulls their support away from the NCAA, what does the NCAA look like? Can they afford to keep going?
Yeah, that's a good one right there. So if the
It is a
A4
good
breaks
question.
away, the NCAA probably does exist still, and it exists with the G5 squads in Division 2, 3, etc. Financially, man, that would be a massive hammer though, because you're taking all the A4 schools away from the NCAA tournament, which is their big revenue generator. They're gonna have to pretty much remake the structure of the NCAA to fund it. I think if that ends up happening, it's gonna have to be a rethink of really what that is, because I'm not sure they can provide the governance they've been doing because of the lack of revenues coming in.
For me, I don't think that the A4 pulls away. If that was what they wanted to do, I think they would have did that in 2014 when they basically told the NCAA we're going to have to leave over the whole stipend issue. It was like $2,000 stipends, and those have since then turned into like $3,500 stipends because they used the autonomous vote to raise that even further. But it's very limited right now. I know there was another question earlier about that. There's not a whole lot that the autonomous conferences can actually vote on right now, but I think that they're probably going to push for a lot more voting rights while within the NCAA. There's a lot of problems right now to deal with, and I kind of think that they probably don't want to actually directly administer all of it. It puts you directly under the gun, so to speak. So as long as they leave basketball with the NCAA will survive. But that's the threat, that by pulling that away, the NCAA will die. So I think they'll get what they want, and I think we're going to start to see the beginnings of that this week.
Do you think that, yeah, you know what, you can jump in right after this, but just a thought. We're talking about the pull away of football only, but why don't we talk about basketball as well? Why in the world would you want to keep your basketball inside the NCAA when you could pull away and do an A4 type structure as well? I mean, like I think that if it's a pull away, you're pulling away basically our sports, everything.
Well,
why would you love?
I would say because a lot of the championships aren't coming from the A4. UConn is the best example. So you're taking away the best basketball team that's arguably the last 2 decades, and you're removing them completely just because their football isn't in that other league. I think that's the reason. Basketball's very it's proletariat. It's everybody. It's the everybody game. Whereas football, there's a little erudition that comes with football. We talk about the 130 schools, but really it's only about 65, 66 that deserve to be playing in this higher tier. Talk about it all the time. So in my opinion, I think they live in 2 different worlds.
Yeah, I just don't think that they actually want to pull basketball. The thing back in the past, they were kind of regretting the way it's gone, and they probably still do to some reason, but it is what it is now. And the reason why they make so much money on that is because it's so wide ranging. Anyone down to any school, even if your school doesn't get in, you can watch another school that is like yours, that's as small as yours, that's making it in, like a St. Mary's or a, how many schools and people look at Gonzaga like that's our team, even though it might be on the other side of the continent. If they pull away from that, and I have the same view in football. I don't think the majors can pull away either because they're actually going to lose more viewership than they gain. It's a bad business decision. So I think, and basketball is not the majority of their money. So I think they're going to leave that there. But I think they want as much governance control as possible over football. And I don't think they want that to turn into a similar situation as basketball where it kind of gets out of their hands.
I kind of differ on the viewership point. I think that if you remove the little guy, the smaller schools and everything, I don't think it does anything to viewership. I actually think that your viewership would improve if you have better brands playing in basketball tournaments. I think people like that a little bit, but it's not going to change their viewing habits at all. I think actually you'd get more viewership in like an A4 tournament if that was for a championship. Yeah, and there's going to be fallout. There's going to be schools like UConn being left out of that A4 championship, and maybe they're playing in a different division for a championship too. But I see that there is a lot of money to be made from basketball if you can separate yourself from the NCAA, like through like an A4 and stuff, and have a tournament with big brands like your Kentuckys and your Kansases, your North Carolinas, your Dukes. Guys, there's a massive, massive, massive amount of money. That's the king of money coming in, honestly. If you can ever get away from the NCAA controlling that and you control it, and yeah, it's going to suck for a lot of programs and everything, but I mean, it's something that they have to be considering, I'd imagine, or financially.
I think your Mark has visioned it, and he's told people what his vision is. I think he does see what you're seeing. You?
Well, yeah, definitely. And like,
Yeah.
and Yormark's talked about the Big 12 unbundling the rights,
Right.
but like,
Right.
and maybe he's even thought about, I'm sure, like talking with these different A4 conferences about just leaving the NCAA and
I
running the
think he
tournament
has.
themselves. That's the
Yeah.
big game changer. You know, that's where all the money's at, is the NCAA tournament, because the viewership is nuts for the NCAA tournament. That's not changing if you get St. Mary's in versus, Georgia Tech or something.
Right.
I don't think that the little guy drives that viewership.
We have a visitor from the alien planet of Mars.
He's been out on the slopes.
Joined us today. You watch the viewership numbers go through the roof because Moen's joined us.
I caught some powder today, guys.
I was just going to say, you look like you just came off the hill.
You tossed some powder. I wonder what that powder is. That's what I would question. Are your eyes, are they dilated pupils? That's all I want to know. Good to have you here, Moen. We've already sort of gone through the Michigan College Football Playoff. We're talking a little bit of basketball, but why don't you catch us up? What did you think of that game last night?
It was a decent game. I mean, I thought that Michigan had it won in the first quarter, and they let Washington creep back in. But
yeah,
I mean, it is what it is. I don't think they're going to hold on to that trophy, but
yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, I heard your poem. I heard your.
You did hear the poem.
Yes.
Do we have to do that again?
Yes, I was writing it down to get put a tattoo on me.
There we go. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that was just in that Ohio State Nation right there, huh? They'd be really, really popular.
Let me get a few shout outs and then we'll get on to our next topic. Antoine Codes is here. Let's see. Mets 1400 is here. Mr. Monkey says is checked in. Mets 1400 says Matt Brown yesterday on the show was great. Mets 1400, that was this afternoon, just so you know.
Yeah. You probably already caught us on video, so people are already watching that. So
I'm glad. That's fantastic. He said he's glad the NCAA is coming out with the game. Let me get any more new people. Casting for Chrome is here. Let's see, Mr. Monkey. Is that everybody's? That's it. And Mr. Monkey says Penix missed some open guys. Penix looked hurt to me.
He was getting beat up.
He looked. I don't know if it was from that first hit he had in the first quarter.
It was on his leg.
He did not look good. It certainly didn't look like the Penix that tore apart Texas. He was a different guy. So I don't know what to make of that. Anybody else want to say anything about the CFB? We also asked about the where Jim Harbaugh is going to end up next, Moen.
San Diego.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I do remember.
I think he's gone.
Someone was saying, watch the battle. They're on the line and see, Michigan's defensive line. They were able to handle that vaunted Washington offensive line. And on the other hand, the other one we're watching, the Michigan offensive line, we saw some of the pushes that they made in the running game. Mm-hmm. I just don't think Washington ever played a team that runs like that. So you're not prepared for it. And that's where I think Michigan might be changing the ball game again. Teams are going to start to go in that direction. Because
I saw a lot of comments that said that was a pro defense. It was a Ravens defense.
Yeah.
Hello, Ravens. Right?
It
looks to me like John Harbaugh was on the sideline calling the defense, because that defense may have been one of the strongest defenses I've ever seen.
But Jim
was
brought that
fast.
from his time up in the league too.
Yeah, I'm being facetious.
Yeah,
you
I know.
Obviously,
I know.
with Ron and
But it
whatnot,
was. I mean, that's
yeah.
what we were saying. Is like people kind of joke around about the Big Ten, and we get that. But they play some defense in that league, and even teams that you may not think about. I mean, they do, and these teams are prepared for it. So I think that Washington and Oregon, after a couple of years, are going to be a lot better for it.
There's a rumor Kalen DeBoer might be out the door.
Go into Michigan.
Yeah.
If Harbaugh leaves
today. I don't know. That could be a bunch of bunk, but
I think that's because he's worried that Iowa's going to take Grubb.
yeah, I don't know. That's a little deep. Nitwit says, Mafia crew, Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you, Nitwit. It's been a week, and we're glad to have you come back. Thank you very much. Derek Edwardson says, how long until the title gets vacated? We talked about this a bit ago, but
yep.
You want to go ahead and say how long that is?
I think that, you know what? I think Immaculate actually nailed it. There's so much stuff going on with the NCAA right now. It's almost like this is going to be put on the back burner and maybe not as harsh as it should be. So I think that it should get vacated, as soon as next year. I think there's an ammunition for it, but given all the stuff that's going on with the NCAA, the changes, I honestly don't think it does get vacated. I really don't. I think it stands.
Wow.
Ask us that question after the convention, after we see what's going down.
That's fine. Michigan also he also says Michigan took the air out of the football in that game. I think Penix just wasn't all there.
Anyway. A little ode to Tom Brady right there.
Yeah, it looked like Washington too was the lights might have been too bright. It felt like the first quarter it got away from them a little bit with those. I mean, Michigan's got a good run game, but when you're busting 50, 60-yard runs and there's like 3 busts in the first quarter, there's a lot going on there. Like Washington wasn't hemorrhaging that type of running game all year, and so I just feel like there was.
Is there anyone in the pack that runs that way though? Because I mean, Michigan was using kind of angled blocking. They were working holes, and the reason why the second back from Michigan was doing so well is he would actually just stop and wait behind the line for them to make that hole, and the other team seemed to lose track of him, and then he was gone. And then they showed in replays how some of the Washington defenders weren't making the right moves in terms of staying in their holes. I don't think that they had played that kind of offense any time during the year, because there aren't very many offenses that run that way unless you're honestly in the Big Ten or maybe one like Alabama or something like that.
Certainly not in the Pac-12.
No.
Yeah, Oregon and Utah probably have the best running game.
Utah. I was going to think. I was like, well, I'm talking to the guy here.
Utah would have been would just if you're talking about just run game. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we have a winner for our bowl bash. What did we call it? We called it the Pick'em, college football Pick'em, Big 12 Mafia. We have a winner that's going to be joining the show. Hopefully he joins us pretty soon. So everybody knows his name is Bobby Mudispa. And let me read his address to you. No, I'm just kidding. It's Bobby Mudispa is number 1. Hopefully he'll join here. Let's quickly go through how this went and see how good our panel of judges did. Okay. All right.
I know where this is going.
Bobby.
Hey, Bobby.
So he'll be receiving a gift in the mail from me. I'm probably going to do that for the first 3. So Bobby is the winner. As soon as he joins, we'll talk to him. I want to know his strategy for picking, actually. And then Dino, that would be Clark Dean, came in second. And these guys did an amazing pick percentage. 32-11. So that's a 3-1 win rate in bowl games. That's Vegas. If you can pick that good, you're in Vegas picking games.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Does that percentage mean that he did a great job in setting the priority? Like he got all of his high priorities, and the ones that he did lose, the 11 were probably out the bottom of his priority.
Let's ask him right now. Exactly. Bobby has joined the show.
Bobby.
Let me get you on here so everybody can see you, Bobby. How you doing?
Good. How about you guys?
Good. Doing well. Congrats. Congrats.
So did you have fun? That's what I always ask my guests. Or did you have fun doing it?
Yeah, it's actually something that me and my family do every year. Like, we even make picks for my dog, just based on mascots. So tossed my picks in a contest this year, and it worked out. I got lucky, so very happy. Had a lot of fun.
Bobby, did you pick Northwestern over Utah?
I did not.
Oh no, it would have been even better.
So you lost that one.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for me.
So my history is my family did the same thing. My uncle started it in like 72. And I think he stole the idea from like the newspaper that was local, and we did it for 50 years. And so I'm glad you had fun. What was your picking strategy? That's the first question we have for you.
I'd love to, come in here and say I, have this big, like behind the scenes spreadsheet of data that I used. But I mean, I honestly just went pick by pick and looked at the records and just made a decision. I don't watch every single college football game out there. I just sort of keep up with it as it goes throughout the season and just make my best educated guess that I can. And, even with, guys like sitting out nowadays to, save themselves for the draft, and you don't necessarily know at the beginning who's going to sit out, who's going to actually play. That's sort of added a new wrinkle to the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it was honestly just going through and making some picks, and I just ended up getting a bit lucky.
Questions for Bobby?
Yeah, I do. Bobby, so did you change any of your picks after you first made them?
I did not make a single change.
Nice.
I didn't change any either. Could you change them? They let you
could change them right before the game was played.
I believe you can.
Before the game?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't do that. It was pick and done. So you did that, Bobby, or you didn't change them?
No, I didn't make any changes. I just sort of let the chips fall as they may.
All right. You're a welcome contributor to the Big 12 Mafia family. We really appreciate you doing that. Immaculate Moen, do you guys have any questions for Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, so how did you win it? Was it because of when you set them in order? Did you win all of your high priority ones and this low, or do you remember?
I think if I recall, I did really well at the very top, and I also did really well at like the very bottom. So I made some like really good upset picks at the bottom that, obviously those are lower point amounts, but they sort of added up. The middle got, a little bit fuzzy, but I made I feel like the right choices at sort of the top of my bracket. And those are obviously the highest point getters. So I think that definitely had a factor in sort of propelling me there.
So Bobby, what was your biggest like swing pick? You're like, I'm on the fence, but I'm going this way, and it worked for you.
I would say probably the Mizzou over Ohio State. My dad is a big time Ohio State fan. But when I was making the picks, I knew that they would be out. Some of their offensive skill players would be out of the game. I know, and they had been a bit shakier than sort of usual during the regular season, as far as I can recall. So it was just a gut call on my part to go with Mizzou. And even though it ended up being like one of the most boring bowl games of the season, it ended up working out for me.
Right on.
This is awesome. Any other questions? I'm going to give him a chance to ask us questions. So, Bobby, how long have you been watching our show?
I'm sort of a newcomer, admittedly. Cool. I actually came around with the BYU custom helmets. I want to give away from them.
You're into that, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my like biggest things or biggest hobbies is getting in-person autographs. So mini helmets are, big for that. So I'd want to give away from them. And just sort of like by way of proxy, that's how I sort of stumbled upon this show as well. So still a newcomer, but I'm happy that I can be a part of the family.
Cool.
Well, I'll definitely get out one of those helmets to you, and you'll also get a rally towel. Do you have any questions for us while you've got the floor?
Yeah, I when you were you had asked me a bit earlier tonight if I was going to be able to make it on the show with you guys. And when I was sort of sitting down getting ready earlier, I just popped in the show just as a spectator real quick, and I heard you guys talking about Jim Harbaugh and his sort of next steps. I cut out at the end to sort of like get myself all situated, so I didn't necessarily hear the answer. But outside, I know he's sort of been linked to the Raiders at the moment, but outside of that, do you guys think there's a fit out on another team that would be even better than the Raiders? Because I don't know. I feel like Pierce did such a good job with them as the interim coach, and the guys really showed up for him. So I don't know if they'll maybe stick with him, if there's potentially another opportunity for Harbaugh elsewhere.
I think that really San Diego and in Vegas, those are the two landing spots for Harbaugh. Those are the two apparent openings, and there might be more too that pop up, and everyone's going to want Jim Harbaugh. He's a proven
one just
winner.
opened up.
And like,
yeah, the Titans just opened up. So.
Oh yeah, Mike Vrabel. Yeah.
And then the Commander's job, I mean, looks like if it hasn't opened up already, it probably will. There's a lot of good jobs out there. He'll end up in one of those spots. It just, to me, the Raiders job just seems like such a fit for Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I
you know,
agree.
like kind of gruff, hard-nosed, physical guy. That's who the Raiders really are, and they've lost that identity. And I think that they're going to make a big swing to get him. Although Pierce has, been a stud over there too. That's my thoughts on it.
No, it's the Chargers. Chargers have the best quarterback available in this cycle.
The Chargers have a mess, like an ownership mess, though.
They've got an ownership mess, but they've got Justin Herbert. Yeah. They've got Bosa on the defensive side of the ball. He's got a lot of pieces he could work with there. So I think the Chargers is the obvious, and it puts him back in Southern California, which just a stone's throw from the Bay Area.
Yeah,
and keeps him as far away from Michigan as possible.
And Eugene says they hear the Commanders are open. The Commanders are the number 2 pick overall.
Thank you,
I mean,
Eugene.
seriously.
Appreciate that.
That's pretty close to his brother.
Nitwit says, "Can we get Bobby to buy us some lottery tickets?" So on Twitter, look Bobby up, and you can. He'll buy. Unfortunately, do you live in Utah?
No, I'm a Pittsburgh guy.
Okay, so you can buy lottery tickets there. If you were in Utah, you can't buy lottery tickets. That's why I was teasing that. Anyway, any realignment questions? Anything else outside of this that you want to ask?
I'll toss another question out there, just sort of current events wise, with Washington making it all the way to the national championship this year. I don't know if a lot of people sort of had them having such a great year as well as they did. Do you guys see another sort of, not necessarily a dark horse, but a team that's outside of the typical blue blood teams that make the playoffs almost every year? Do you see a team sort of making the run that Washington did next year?
Yes.
Go ahead, Immaculate.
Go ahead, Immaculate.
Arizona,
interesting. What sort of intrigues you about them?
I think that they played extremely tough with the freshman quarterback, and I think he's going to be so much better next year. I think that they're pretty much lined up. If you're someone coming up and you're seeing that, you're thinking, I got to get over there. And I don't know where really the rest of the Big 12 is. That's not to say that there isn't anyone who can beat them. I just think if they really step things up right there, I think that they could be the dark horse to kind of win that next year. And that could put them in line to do the same in there. Because in my opinion, that kid's going to be a stud. Their quarterback, for being a freshman, I think he's a freshman redshirt, but his poise in the pocket. So I kind of bet on the quarterback.
I think Ohio State.
Ohio State's a blue blood through and through. I'm gonna put salt in the wounds of every.
Ohio State's my far down pick.
That was a great shot, though.
Yeah, okay, let's listen. Away from blue bloods, Nate. Away from blue bloods. Not the bluest of bloods.
That was good stuff.
I'm sorry.
So
Bobby got my juices going.
As an Iowa fan, I really appreciate that.
I'm going to put salt in the wound of the Washington fans. I think Oregon's probably got a good shot next year.
Yeah, I think they do.
I think the team to watch that could pull off an upset in the first round of the playoffs, Kansas. I think Kansas could do it.
Yeah.
I think Texas Tech is going to be real good next year. But I said that last year, so I wouldn't go with that.
So, Bobby, this is a really easy answer, and you're a Cougar fan, right?
Oh, stop it.
BYU.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next topic. Okay, we're
Bobby,
done with that.
the Utah Utes, baby.
All right,
Utah
Bobby,
Utes.
I will send you that helmet, and you'll get a flag. Thank you so much for participating. We really, really appreciate it. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate having me on.
You bet. Stick with
care.
us. We're going to be doing more stuff in the off season. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, you going to clap him out or what, Moen?
Heck yeah.
Also, Jed Fish is going to Michigan, so he can't coach Arizona next year.
Yeah,
so
no,
I did, Arizona's there. Jaden Laura's either in jail or transferring, and they're going to lose their head coach.
If
So-
Jetfish goes, the thing is going to crumble like a house of cards.
I agree with that too.
Same thing with Lance Leipold. Those are two programs right there that are coach dependent. There's no foundation there outside of the coach for both programs. So
could Michigan pull Washington's coach though? I mean, I think that's a great question.
Yes, they could. Of course they can. Or Michigan.
I mean, I understand, but now at that point in time, Washington coming in, you got to look at them as one of the top programs, but they're not quite yet on that Michigan, Ohio State level. So I'm curious to see how much money, because we've already heard from the Washington AD that they're going to basically drive up the Brinks truck to keep DeBoer. So Michigan would have to throw a lot of money out there, and that could set the new bar for coaches' pay. Could be DeBoer.
I'm going to move on to our next topic, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We're 42 minutes in. We got 30 people watching us live. We were head-to-head with Greg Pflugar's show. So I knew we'd get off to a slow start, but we had a lot of ground to cover tonight. So we really appreciate everybody being here and being patient with us. We will get to people's comments as the show progresses. Don't think anybody's being picked over. We're just a lot going on tonight. Next topic, and you wanted to start off with this right away. This 2024 way too early college football top 25 rankings. What did you want to really converse about this, you?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a look specifically at the Big 12 programs. We've been talking about the Big 12 programs a bit, as is, but where they're shaping up. Like you can see in the top 5 here, a lot of the same schools that you would expect. I mean, Oregon actually is number 3 on this list.
Yeah, they are.
Which is nuts, guys. Like Oregon, next year going into the Big 10, they've got the second or third most talented roster in the Big 10.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, based on talent composite. Moan, seriously, Oregon has that talented of a roster.
Did you see where Arizona was, though?
Yeah, I did. 9th.
Yeah. Yep.
So really, looking at where the Big 12 stacks up versus all these other schools, I thought, I know that some folks won't find this as amusing, but I did think that is funny, having Utah and Arizona at the top there. Basically, this new Pac-12 South really is the preseason favorites to win the Big 12.
Yeah, so you got Arizona, Utah, and then Oklahoma is the next one. Those are the 3 in the top 20.
Those are the 3. And really, those are going to be the big contenders in the Big 12 next year. KU is going to be up there, and K-State's going to be a good program too. I mean, I know there's a lot of parity in the conference, but the thought is that, like Immaculate said, that Arizona is going to be a major, major contender next year, as long as they have Jed Fish. And if Jed Fish leaves, it's donezo. So that's a must keep.
Let me just get down here to the bottom. What was so Iowa's 25th. That would mean there's 5 Big 10 schools. Did I count that right? I just scanned it really quickly. SMU is ahead of Iowa, by the way.
Yeah, whatever. I know. I mean, you got to have an offense to get on most people's board.
Louisville's ACC, NC State, AC 3, 4. So Big 12 had 4 in the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see.
Pretty sure you're gonna have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State,
Oregon,
Washington.
Oregon and Washington. So that's 5.
Oregon, Washington 5, Iowa 6.
Iowa 6.
Did Wisconsin make it there, or are they in the top 30?
I didn't see.
I
don't
think they're there.
No.
I think we got 6.
I mean, just the Big 10. You better have 6. If we look at the SEC, obviously we know there's at the top. Missouri, we just passed.
They probably got like 8.
Georgia, let's count them really quick. Texas,
Alabama.
Alabama.
Holy smokes!
I know. It's
Ole
just
Miss is
crazy.
gonna
Ole
be
Miss,
loaded next year. Holy.
yeah,
5.
Missouri. Let's see here. Penn State, LSU,
6,
Mhm.
7.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Oklahoma.
I mean, the SEC
8.
is absolutely going to be a
Tennessee.
gauntlet, guys.
Tennessee, that's 8. This is crazy, dude. 8. Let's see.
I think
8.
that's it.
8. So 8
Yeah.
in the SEC. That is a
It's
crazy
usual,
number.
but that's one of the reasons why I hate the rankings. So because when that comes out in preseason, that sets the tone that it's easier for them to maintain higher rankings, and then they get the strength of schedule based off of that. It's just, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I mean, to a degree, they deserve that. So
I am shocked that the ESPN is favoring the SEC
Yeah, no.
in this. I am shocked.
Oh, stop it.
Hey, speaking of that, what do you guys think about the college football playoff? The negotiations being exclusively to ESPN. At least
Okay.
that's the steam right now.
So that was an article written by an ESPN person. So Greg talked about this on his show a little bit. The idea that ESPN is reporting on the college football playoff, and it's an ESPN outlet that's saying they're the only ones that are going to have it, doesn't sit right with me. I cannot believe, and I said this on Greg's show, I typed it. I do not see that this is a walkaway bid. There's no way they do a no bid on a contract that could be worth $4 billion.
He's like,
Unless-
hey,
I just
Thamel,
cannot see it.
who's your source? My boss. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's kind of, I don't put any stock in that. But
No.
what do you think? I mean, you brought it up.
Yeah, I think that there's something to it. I don't think
Okay.
that ESPN's the only one that came out with it. I thought that some more reputable outside sources came up with that too. I don't think that was just an internal ESPN memo or anything based on what I'd read earlier. I think that there's some steam around that, or else it wouldn't have got brought up at all. And I think that if that were the case, that would really be a big deal too. If ESPN had all the rights going forward too, just like they have, I mean, that is more exposure for the SEC. You know, it's
Right.
more discussion about college playoff teams, SEC being in that, and that's not good for Fox. I mean, Fox is becoming a big brand, you know, in college sports, but that'd be a huge swing, I think, and that'd
Well,
be
the
a huge.
exclusive window's over.
Yeah.
So why all of a sudden would it only be ESPN? And it just doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe the bids just didn't come in from Fox that you'd expect. Maybe they lowballed it based on the media rights environment.
They're killing their own conference in the ACC. They're literally killing that conference. They're going to
Right.
throw everything away and just do SEC, a little bit of Big 12, and all the college football playoff. You think that's all they do?
Well, listen here. If you're a member, put your tinfoil hat in the chat.
Oh, here we go. Where's the
Because
hat?
what if ESPN is getting these exclusive rights based on the fact that ESPN is going to basically allow the ACC to implode?
Right.
So, I mean, it could be quid pro quo here, where they're going to say, okay, you guys can stay exclusive, but when Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina, when these schools leave the ACC, you don't screw with them. You just let them go. You let them walk. Similar to what happened with Texas and Oklahoma and Fox Sports, where they have some kind of negotiated number that's not punitive by any means towards those schools leaving the ACC to get into the Big Ten or the SEC.
Wouldn't you run into legal issues? I mean, if that were indeed the case and
It's
everything.
it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
That's the line.
Well, monopolies are not normally, they're frowned on. So I don't know about that.
I think part of the talk, though, was that ESPN would be able to subcontract those out, kind of like how Fox does with Big Ten content, where they're the first go-between, and then they kind of deal with NBC and CBS. So they might just be that, because no one's picking those up at a higher price because they all want to be tied into the higher end content. I mean, let's face it, that very first round is probably going to have some of the more lopsided games. So I think folks are just kind of reticent to spend big money just for those. Like Fox, they probably want higher up content to go with. So ESPN will probably get that at a deal, and then whatever they can sell that to others later on, then maybe they'll cut a little bit more to the CFP. But we'll see how it plays out. Like you're saying, though, having ESPN reporters report on ESPN, having the the leg up on this, it kind of stinks a little bit.
I just don't understand why you would let it go to the open market then. You're going to just pay more for it. Why wouldn't they just close it down when they had the chance? They wanted to go to the open market.
Sometimes going to the open market, you think that you're going to get more money, but then at the end of the day, you don't, i.e. Pac-12.
Well, sure. No, I know it happens. I'm just saying Fox is a big deal right now in college sports.
And NBC wanted in too on the college football playoff, and like some
Right.
streamers were interested. There's a lot of different entities interested, but like, hey, we're still in this media environment that is absolute crap right
Yeah,
now.
that's
Like
true.
the NBA is struggling to get a big time media deal, guys, right now. So there's not a lot
That
of
is
money going around everywhere. So maybe Fox is just full. Maybe they just can't come in with a big enough bid. Maybe it's really that simple, where ESPN's just the luck of the market, and they've got the cash, future cash to allocate to it.
So, Moen, you really think there's a chance this is true?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look, if there's some leeway to get rid of the ACC as quick as possible and get towards a Power 3 situation, I think it's entirely plausible. And trust me, I've seen crazier things happen in the last 18 months. So,
Okay. I guess, yeah. It's shocking to me that would come out, but
It might be a small piece in a bigger puzzle, basically, is what he's saying. And while
Right,
it doesn't
I
make
get it.
sense on its own, because, I look at it and go, I don't believe it. But if it was part of some other bigger move, then that would make sense.
Sergeant Pickles, super chat, $1.99. Good to see you, Pickles. Sergeant Pickles and I got to bed early last night, so we're well rested for today. He says, evening all, still sad, but dang proud, go Dogs. Yep, I agree to you. I agree with you. I think Washington had a great year, and we don't know something that happened from last week to this week. The team did not look the same. Something was wrong. I don't know what it was, but good to have you here, Pickles. Thank you very much for your super chat. We really, really appreciate it.
What a run, Pickles. That was only one of two games that the Pac-12 ever won in the college football playoff era. And that was Oregon once and Washington once. So it was a big accomplishment, massive. The Utah Utes have never even sniffed anything like that. So amazing accomplishment. You were right there. And being in the Big Ten with the new windfall of cash and everything, with your coach, DeBoer, if you keep him, things are going to look up, man. So keep that chin up, and well done.
Anybody else want to say hi to Pickles?
hey, Pickles, you get to look forward to playing teams like Purdue, Indiana. You'll have some easy wins here. So you can always look forward to at least a 9-win season.
I
Look
love
forward to your trip to Iowa City.
Yeah, I don't know about that part.
Yeah, he
That
says
one's
he's
a little
going.
off. I know
If it's at night,
Telling you,
not
Iowa
something
City, going there for a game, that's a good time.
All right, let's see here. Next topic we want to talk about is this Will Washington CNE of the 11.7 million its run has earned in the Pac-12. Obviously, the Pac-12 is now the Pac-2. Let me share that article so everybody can see what I'm looking at. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. Are they going to see any of that money? Ute.
Yeah, so this conversation came up through the Sportico article. So Washington, through that playoff run, through the championship run, they earned an additional 12 million, approximately $11.7 million. That's going to be dispersed. What should be dispersed amongst conference members, but the article discusses if that's even going to happen with Washington State and Oregon State still controlling the governance, of the Pac-2 now. And so the crazy irony is that there's a world where Washington State, the rival of Washington, can control the money that they just earned through a playoff run. And it just kind of speaks to what a messy situation that Pac-2 situation is. We haven't talked about that for a long time, but really more money's coming in and more money's being hoarded, and like we'll still see how that's going to be allocated. But how silly is it that Washington State has basically control of where the money flows for their rival Washington based on Washington's playoff run?
Irony, I think,
Irony.
is what you would call that. It'd be ironic. You Immaculate or Moen, you want to add anything to that?
Well, Washington wouldn't consider Washington State their rival.
That's
They
true.
consider Oregon their rival. Washington State considers Washington their rival.
Isn't that what he said?
Well, no, but Washington.
Oh.
I'm just saying, Washington State. You want to piss off Washington State fans? Washington doesn't consider them their rival. It's just like Michigan State.
Pickles, you consider Washington State your rival. I mean, that's the Apple Cup. That's a big game.
Sergeant Pickles says wife is still giving the green light for a trip to Kinnick this fall. Okay, so I think he's talking about is Kinnick, Iowa?
Yep, that's Kinnick Stadium.
He also says would also be bullcrap that OSU and WSU keep all the money while sitting at home.
Well,
so I think you can tell where Pickles is at.
By
the way, Pickles, is your wife doing okay? Let us know how she's doing.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Immaculate.
No, you're good. If it was just Oregon and Washington leaving, just another twosome leaving and leaving everyone else behind, and Washington wasn't getting any of that money because they were already going to be gone, would people be saying that that's a travesty? Or would they be saying, well, that comes with, the territory when you're leaving your conference? Because that money doesn't come into the conference until later on and you're already out.
Right.
So I just look at it as the same, even though, yeah, like you're saying, it's ironic. It's wild. It's crazy that this is actually happening. But I don't look at it as any different than if it was 10 staying behind and 2 leaving. Like it's just because it's such a unique situation. It seems like it shouldn't be, but that's how it's been with every other departure too.
I agree with you 100%. Moen?
Yeah, I this goes back to what the judge said, not to pull any funny crap. I think if they try and withhold the full amount from Washington, the judge is going to step in and say, no, that's kind of against what I told you.
But by the time that money comes, because those payouts from the CFP, they don't come the same year. That's
sure.
They'll be gone.
Door by that time.
Yeah, they'll be gone.
They'll be gone by that time, but I still think the judge is going to come back and say, hey, this is money they earned while they were part of the conference. It should be dispersed fairly.
That never happened.
Well,
Oklahoma and Texas don't get any
is Texas going to get CFP money for this year?
What's the difference, Moen, between the two?
They absolutely should. If they're in the conference, they should get the disbursement of the money that they earned.
But that's never happened.
I don't think that's happening, though, as per their departure.
We don't know yet. We'll see. As far as I know, that they're going to get a disbursement from what they've earned in the Big 12 this year.
This year, we're talking about these payouts don't come for a year.
Yes, the payouts come later, but they are earned during this year.
Oh, I don't know.
I think they will.
I think once
it'll be interesting. I'm not
generally like once you're leaving, you're not getting those payouts anymore. That's part of the cost of moving is that period of time for when you've announced your departure and your current conference is, not paying you for that time, and then you're going to your new conference, and the payouts that are happening at your new conference are from previous, and you're not getting that either. So that's it's one of the rough spots for moving conferences is that 2-year period where you're not getting paid by the previous one and you're not getting paid by your current one because they're getting paid for time when you weren't there. So it's a tough spot. It's just a very weird situation where you got two teams being left behind, but like if the roles were reversed and it was 10, that
the last example we had that went through was the 3 AAC schools. The minute they left, they walked away from their college football playoff and basketball money.
Correct. Yep.
So why would Washington and Oregon be any different?
That's the weird part to say to people because, with Sergeant Pickles and Chad, it's kind of like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, I don't think you're going to get any of it. And that's just kind of the weird, extra ironic part of this is, they had this moment and they're, but hey, it's still small time compared to the future and what they're going to get in the Big Ten.
I guess it is possible they're getting checks and we just don't know about it. I guess going to Moen's point, maybe they are getting that money. But I believe me, with BYU, I've been up on how much money you can get from everywhere you go, and I think you walk away the minute you turn in your resignation, you're cut off. You get this year's salary, and then you're out the door. You don't get anything else that comes in playoff money or bonuses or anything.
One usual payment already got, kibosh.
But I could be wrong. It could be, and we just don't know.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to see this as it goes. Like, we're in uncharted territory.
Let's see here. Sergeant Pickles says, and wife is just fine. Big day is still Thursday. Again, we're praying for you and your wife, mostly your wife. We don't care about you, to have a good labor, and hopefully everything goes well with that. Sergeant Pickles also says, call me petty, and you can maybe identify with this.
Right.
Call me petty, but if the P2 screw over UW for giving them extra money, F their Apple Cup, let them become another Eastern Washington. Well,
that's I mean, I totally get the thought on that, and then the feeling on that. But it comes down to that comes down to part of leaving a conference is you're getting that period in between where money's tight and tough, and you're not quite getting everything that maybe you earned because you've made the choice to leave.
But so Washington and Oregon are under contract to play, and they're in the pack currently still. They haven't left yet. This is a future commitment. So it's still within the realm of the contractual period of these 12 teams, the Pac-12. And this occurred during that timeline too. So I don't know why they wouldn't be able to get the money that they just earned during this calendar year when they're actually under contract with the pack.
Because that's not actually
doesn't make sense.
But that doesn't actually happen that way. Like in every other realignment case that's happened in the past, when you leave, when those payments come in after the fact, it's I don't think it's due to you unless there's specific terms in the departure that says so.
I know for a fact, let's use this as an example, an exemplar. Cincinnati did not get any of their CFP money from the AAC.
Did that get allocated to the exit fee when they left? Because that usually what happens.
That I
with
can't.
Texas.
That I anybody in the AAC know how that went down. I know that they didn't get the money. I cannot swear that it did go to the exit money. That's possible.
Because there's talk that Florida State's not going to get a distribution for this year because it's basically being stored as a war chest to pay an exit fee.
Well, they said that actually. They said they know they are.
And and I think the same thing happened with Texas and Oklahoma. They basically said, "Oh, forget about paying us the distribution that we're owed. That's just going to go towards the exit fee that we owe the conference." I think that any other fees and everything else would just go towards the exit fee once that's paid off and you allocate.
Where's Mitt Winter when I need him? I tell you what, let's table this. This is a great topic, okay, guys? If you'll help me not forget, because I can't do notes during the show live. If you'll make a note, send me a note. I will follow up and I will chase that down because I think it does matter. We're making a lot of assumptions, including myself, about what we've been told or what we've read. But let's actually find out the details because it is possible that they did get some of that money. They did, but it went directly to the exit fee instead of being a payout. It might be a trade of some sort. So sure, that's possible.
Might be.
Antoine Code says if the Tupac keep all the money, does that eliminate their chances of joining an AQ conference? Let me give you a quick answer, and I know Immaculate's going to give you a long answer. In my opinion, their chances to join an AQ conference a lot is going to be with how they behave. If they're really crappy to the leaving Pac-10, if they treat that next step as just a stepping stone instead of sort of a gift, something that they weren't owed, humility and stuff. Yeah, I definitely can see the four leagues keeping them out. But that's just my opinion. What do you think, Immaculate? I'll let everybody answer.
I'll actually keep mine very short. If any other AQ conference is actually looking at them, and they also want that money for those teams coming in, let's say the Big 12, they got 4 schools coming in that could get some money. The moment that Oregon State and Washington State get an invite elsewhere, all that the pack is going to close shop and all that money is going to get divided up. And everyone will be on the same terms because everyone's leaving at the same time. So any money that coming in, even from future payments, would already be set to be divided up between everyone equally. If they're left behind, Well, then they're being left behind. I don't know if I would necessarily worry about what the AQ conferences think if I was them, because they're having to think about survival. So does it eliminate their chances or hurt their chances? Maybe. But I would say then that would probably already be the case. So, I don't know. There is something to that. But if they're really that worried about it, they could just get invited and all that money gets divided up quickly.
Ute?
I think that Washington State and Oregon State have one chance to get into an automatic qualifying conference. And I guess that terminology we're talking about, like an A4 conference, right? In this new world that we're living in, and that is through the ACC. I don't think that's realistic to look at the Big 12, Big 10, or SEC for places, but the ACC will be looking for schools once they get rated, and that is the chance that Washington State and Oregon State have to get into an A4 level conference. The nice thing is if they hoard as much money as possible, I don't think anybody's going to hold that against them. They might have a little bad reputation with your Washingtons and Utahs. But I don't think the ACC cares. The ACC just wants to make more money, and what they could offer the ACCs, they could say they could pay their own freight for a couple of years. So you don't even have to pay us any media rights distributions. We've got the money already from the remains of the Pac-2. And so forget that, and we'll join your conference in a couple of years, and we'll add value in a few years down the line. But it's essentially a similar deal to SMU. That's what they can offer the ACC.
Moen, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The ACC is the obvious choice here. They'll need to backfill. I can't say any more than what you said. You said a lot better and a lot prettier than me. So
I agree with you too. I do believe their only chance at this point is the ACC, and it could happen sooner than later. The greatest gift to them is if Florida State and maybe another school leaves. They will definitely try to stay alive by bringing on OSU and Washington State. But that's a discussion for a different time.
They're going to get in, guys. I think that once the ACC implodes, and if there's 4 or 5 schools that leave, I mean,
probably
they're going to be one of the first calls. Maybe the first call is to Oregon State and Washington State. Especially if they've got a bag of cash.
The whole SMU situation at CMP might actually be saying that too, because if they're not paying any more G5s, it's not a problem with Oregon State and Washington State.
Let's talk about that really quick. Let's break that down. The SMU deal, I don't have an article up to reference it, but in the news is that, and we talked about this last week, I think we talked about it on Friday as well, SMU may or may not get their payout from the college football playoff because they didn't qualify. They basically weren't voted in as a member of that group to get that additional money. And there was this political play that maybe Schultz, the president at Washington State, could use his vote, leverage it to hold back their authorization of changing from a 6-6 to a 5-7. Now that vote has already happened. The 5-7 vote happened, but the conversation about what happens after is still ongoing. Do we have any updated information on whether SMU is going to get that money and what is happening with Schultz's vote?
We got the kind of an update on it. The Schultz's vote is getting pushed back for another 2 to 3 weeks for some reason. Schultz asked for more time to deliberate on that, and the chair, who is the Mississippi State president, said that he thought that the chances were paraphrasing, chances are great, and he thinks it's definitely going to happen, that it'll pass in 2 or 3 weeks when they come back on it. The SMU vote didn't seem to happen, or they're not. Basically, it would require a full vote, unanimous vote, to get them the payout. And I'm guessing, they did the whole straw poll, check with everyone on this, and someone was still saying they wouldn't vote for it if it happened. So I just don't think they had the vote. So that's where that's sitting right there. And then the 5+7, that's what got pushed off. The only thing that really went through is what we already kind of thought went through, and that was the 8-team requirement for AQ status.
Right. For the league itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. I think if we're talking common sense, they want to keep as few schools in that upper tier as possible. So in my opinion, they don't want the Pac-12 to even think about reconstituting itself, which would then give them momentum to move to the ACC, just so you get that conference out of the way. You no longer have to worry about it. And now the ACC is the only conference, at least today, that could possibly be backfilling with more G5s if and when, well, Florida State's gone, but any other schools that leave the ACC. But it's not going to be a lot. We know this, the door's closing, and it's probably going to be shut forever if you don't make this turn.
Yeah, I don't see there's any way that SMU gets a full payout. I mean, we've already kind of talked about that, on last week's episode, but they need all the votes in the room, and they're not going to get it. And why would Greg Sankey want to give SMU more money than he has to? Why would he approve this? Basically,
again,
what's in it for him?
Tinfoil hat time.
Mm-hmm.
This could all go to the ACC. Sankey could get North Carolina. He can get those schools. The Big Ten can get Florida State and Clemson or Miami. Oregon State and Washington State find homes in the new ACC. The Big 12 might be able to poach somebody out of the ACC as a result of this. Notre Dame would be really the only one that would be opposed to it, because all the G5s would be for it. Those other conferences, the other three conferences would be for it. The only one that I see as the outlier is Notre Dame. Okay. Would Notre Dame support that if it means the ACC being weakened?
You support paying them or not paying them?
Support the other schools coming out and saying, we'll take SMU and future G5 backfill.
Right, to get their vote early.
The ACC has to back off of letting schools like Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia out.
Right.
Yeah. And my outlying question is, what is so different? I mean, I do believe there is a very real answer to it, but what is so different about SMU compared to Houston and Cincinnati and UCF, all who got the unanimous vote to raise their pay?
I think they wrote a check. That's how they got in. That's why. That's it. They didn't earn it. They weren't invited. They shoved their arm in the door and didn't pull their leg out.
I think there's even more to it than that. The Big 12 was in survival mode. I think everybody was trying to help the Big 12 survive. The ACC could have survived without SMU. So I think that plays into it as well. I think there was a stronger sympathy vote for the Big 12 when they let those four schools move up.
I don't think emotion plays into it at all. I think it's purely I think you were onto it. I think that there is a leverage play involved with this somehow. I'm not going to sit here and say exactly how it is, but I look at what they did with the Big 12. I mean, they invited four schools after losing two, and all four schools got the bump in pay, no problem. No talk at all about there being some kind of questioning of it or anything. And yes, how SMU got in is very, unique, very kind of unorthodox, and maybe it rubs some folks the wrong way, but it's basically what had to be done in order to make it happen. And I think most folks in the know realize it's to have replacements for those that are leaving. They know schools are leaving. And so I think it's a leverage play on the ACC for something. We'll see.
I think it's time. I think there's been so much change, tectonic change, guys. Like with the Pac-12 falling apart, the rules have changed. The conferences have changed. There's no 5 power conferences anymore. There's 4, and the consolidation is happening, and like that just fueled the consolidation, the collapse of the Pac. So all the movement since Houston and BYU got into the Big 12 has changed the game, and they don't want to let any more people in. Because they realize every school that they let in, it erodes the payout to my conference of schools, even by a couple bucks. That's where we're at. Like everything, they want every dollar they can have, and like that's Sankey's job actually to yield that type of results too, to get max payouts for his schools. So it makes sense.
But what conference right now is holding up consolidation?
Consolidation?
Mm-hmm.
ACC.
Right.
I didn't understand the question, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the ACC holding up consolidation? How?
Because they're inviting teams.
Well, they're inviting teams, but they're not in like the Big 12 made a deal to allow Texas and Oklahoma to leave sooner than usual.
Yes.
They played ball. The ACC is not playing ball right now.
Okay.
So they're getting their arm twisted.
I get what you're saying. Okay.
Mhm.
I understand. I didn't understand what you meant.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why I wanted to explain
Yeah,
further.
a
But that was kind of a
little
leading
odd.
question, like, leading into the idea is that the ACC, that's why I think some things might break free sooner than is being reported or talked about, like by Greg. I think that we might have movement with the ACC sooner rather than later. And I think this SMU is a bit of arm twisting because the ACC is on the hook for that. They made a deal with SMU, and that money was part of that deal. And so that means all these other schools that are in the ACC would have to fork that over to SMU because that was part of their deal.
Let's move on to another topic. Moen wasn't here for this. We talked about this for a few minutes, but I thought we'd address it while Moen was here as well. Will a 12-team playoff format further erode men's basketball value because it extends further into the men's basketball season?
No, because most of the value in men's basketball is in March. So I'd imagine probably 70 to 80% of the value is in March Madness.
Right.
So I don't think you're really going to do any damage, any irreparable harm to the basketball season's profits.
With this, I'm curious on how many more weeks we're going to be extending out the college football season.
0.
When
Well,
0? So is it
Yeah, they're going to
happening
do
right
the
after?
quarter. They're going to do them the 20th and 21st was my understanding for the first 4 games.
Yep.
And then December 31st, January 1st for the
And then the
next
next
4.
week.
And then the next week will be championship
Yep.
game.
They extended
I understood
towards
too.
the season instead of further
So
into
they went
January.
into they went into December in essence,
Yeah, into
rather
bowl
than extending
season.
it.
Yeah, because they don't. I mean, they're not worried about basketball as much as they're worried about the NFL.
Yeah, the NFL playoffs.
They're not trying to fight the NFL. They're
Yeah, it's
not.
better to finish earlier, even before,
Yeah.
Get a lot of the work done even
Yeah.
before the season's over.
Like Moen says,
So-
most of the value, and this doesn't make them happy, but most of the value in basketball is much later. They wish it wasn't the case, but it is.
That's a really good question though, because it's a strategy decision too, right?
Mhm.
Where you put resources, and these schools are putting resources to multiple sports. I think it could. The more you add, more bandwidth you add, it's going to further drag on resources. So it is. I think it's a valid question.
I think that it could make sense to extend that into January, and like if you don't go head to head with the NFL, if you put games on Thursday nights, like I don't see a reason not to. I mean, those would get huge ratings. So you keep your bowl games in December, then have the playoffs start around New Year's and go almost into February, just on Thursday nights instead of the weekends. I'm serious, like that. That'd kill it, I think. And then men's basketball value every week that goes by, where the men's basketball is not the feature. Yeah, I mean, I think hurts the product even if it's not massive, right?
I think
Right.
men's basketball will benefit much more from NIL causing these guys to stop leaving after 1 year. When your best basketball players stick around longer, I think that will
Yes.
actually outweigh any loss of value that football causes. I think there's other ways for them to focus on that. I mean, once they do that, basketball is going to become a much bigger deal because it's going to be a much better product.
If the world that we hope happens, I agree with you.
Right.
Next article. By the way, if you don't know about these 3 articles, I'll post the links so everybody can get to them. These are all done and found by the Wild Ute, who is a subscriber, I think, to Sportico. I'm just teasing. That's where a lot of his stuff comes from.
Oh man,
Sportico, and we
I
love
bruise
it
that too
because
much.
there's a lot of detail there. So the question out of the article is being generated by the article. Play college football, then go to college. Are students employees? What were you thinking on this one, you?
Yeah, so this is an idea that's been broached here, and this is saying that the education that student athletes, and namely football players, get is very poor. It's not like your normal college education that you guys out there or us would get, because being a Division I athlete, especially like an A4 level, like you're doing that all the time. There's not time for school. There's not time for studying. It's all about prep for football. It's all consuming. And so really these students, are just kind of getting by, taking minimal classes, not really getting in like a thorough education at all during their time playing on the football team because their priority is football, not school. We all know that, but that just hasn't been talked about very much. So the idea is, hey, we'll play. Here's the program. Have 4 years of full-time football, dedicated football, and then after that 4 years of dedicated football is over, then give the student athlete access to the education if they decide to take the education for a 4-year period too. So they can just focus on football for a period of time, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however long they're on the team and playing football, and just extend that out to college after their playing career is over so they can focus on football, then focus on school.
Personally, I like it.
It's an interesting idea,
Yeah.
for sure.
I do think maybe
Thought-provoking.
take a few general ed courses during your football time. I think when we were having that chat on X, someone brought that up that you still have them do some coursework. I think if you get out of the classroom for 4 years after high school and you come in there, it might be tough to go back. I would still keep them in the classroom for a little bit just to kind of keep that the ritual of it, so to speak, fresh. To you've been out of that for 4 years just playing football, you may not want to go back to class. So as long as the NCAA is still around, I think that they would push back on this to some degree, and there'd have to be a compromise. But in general, I think it's a pretty good idea.
Owen, what do you think?
I hate the idea.
Okay.
You can do both. It's been done. It's been done for a long time. Most kids playing college football don't go pro. They actually get their degrees and use their degrees in the real world. So, I hate the idea.
Do you think someone like?
Sorry.
Yeah, so let's look at Blake Corum. Like, do you think Blake Corum's going to classes and getting like any essence of a normal education though? Like, or is he focusing on football? Like, I mean,
is he having to face the same structure as every other Michigan student? Probably not. Michigan's a very academically good school, but he's still getting an education there, I believe. I still believe he's showing up to class and working the programs.
I'll be honest with you guys. Cam Rising, I don't know if he's gone to class for quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's 64 years old.
So I mean, really, I don't know, in practicality, how many classes and how these guys actually, if they get any education at all when they're going to these schools. Like, just being really blunt about it, I just think this provides let's just rip the tape off here and to say, okay, you're a football player. You need all of your time to be focused on football. Maybe not in the off season, but during the season, certainly. And I think that, after the fact and stuff, that's a pretty good program for a lot of these guys, because once they're done with college football, I mean, they have to pay their way in to the university if they want to get an education. They didn't finish it up at the time. So
Michigan versus the world. Congratulations, Michigan, by the way.
Definitely.
Winning your championship last night. Almost like the military and the GI Bill. When you were first describing it, that's what I was picturing. It's like, hey, I went into the military, and then I have the GI Bill paying me my education. Is that a good analogy?
I think it's perfect. It's exactly what we're talking about here. Is like, you do your years of service here, your 4 years of football service, and then you get that amount in educational benefits after the fact.
Okay, next question. Derek Edwardson says, would most people want to start college at 23?
That's kind of my thoughts on it. Is you don't want them to fall out of practice in terms of being a student.
My thought is my kid was out of a block. What was that? Three quarters, and it's like he became dumb overnight. He's an amazing student, but he's out of school for a quarter, and all of a sudden now all his classes he can't pass. So I think it's a huge mistake not making them go to class. I'm not saying they have to work 16, do 16 credit hours. Fine, make it 8 or something, but they need to be going to some class.
They need some structure. I mean,
something. That's my opinion. I mean, my opinion is not very big. Doesn't matter.
I mean, how many D1 athletes in football are graduating with degrees? I don't have that figure, but if you guys had
I think it's pretty high at some schools.
It's more than go pro. I know that. It's over 50%.
What is BYU graduation rate of football players?
That is actually part of what the NCAA does. They they govern these schools so that there are certain times when like you can't be doing practice, you can't do these things, and those guys have to be in class. It's one of the things when you talk about getting rid of the NCAA is, do these schools want that? Because it invites a lot of possible issues. I don't know. I don't know if they want that gone, but that is something that is taken care of. I mean, there are times when you can't be doing anything and these kids have to be in class.
Right. Just for an example, Michigan has an 83% graduation rate among their football players.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That is
I mean,
good.
they get a lot of help. They get a lot of tutor help, but they do the work. It's just
Right.
they don't have to do it in the same way as every other student, if that makes sense. Like you get like the best students tutoring you, and they get some help, but they are there and they are doing it.
They get some advanced scouting.
So BYU as a team has an academic progress rate out of 1,000 of 946. And that's in the top 8% of all
So it's
universities.
about
So
94%.
yeah, so that's pretty high.
Yeah,
That might be wrong.
High.
That was Chat GTP. I don't believe that actually.
Okay.
That's too high. We will have to do some research on that. It's a good question though.
Ohio State's over 80%. So
yeah, the Big Ten schools, the Pac-12 schools, even the ACC schools, I do not question their graduation rates. Any of them. I think the Big 12 and the SEC are the two that might have lower scores in that. BYU is going to be up there, but yeah, I just think those other conferences. It's obvious they're biased toward academics. They sold us that for 2 years through realignment.
Mm-hmm.
So. Let's see here. We had some great comments tonight, everybody. I really appreciate everybody being here tonight.
Chat's picking up. I think Greg ended.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
He went an hour and a half longer than I thought he was going to. So let's see here. Sergeant Pickles, Michigan versus the world. He says we were 4-8. Now only Pac-12 team to win a Sugar Bowl conference champs. Oh, he's talking about University of Washington. Sorry, I thought that was a question. Instead, Pickles is trolling a little bit. That's cool. RFR Mac, I think you're new to the show. Good to see you here, RFR. Make sure you subscribe. It says they have tutoring and a lot of help. Do not like this at all. Moen is right. Wow, somebody saying Moen is right.
Yeah, there we go. Get the claps.
Well, people say I'm right. I don't get any claps.
I don't think he wanted to say that the Ohio State guy was right.
Well, hey, I just wanted to go back to that top 25. I didn't see BYU in there at all.
No.
Just saying, everybody else's school was represented.
It's gonna be a minute, right? I'm not one of these crazy people that think overnight they were gonna be fantastic. I never claimed that. I said I thought they'd be better. They lost one less game than I anticipated they were going to win, but they should have beat Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. So
you guys
it's not
will be
like
in the
they
race
didn't have
in
flashes.
5 years. Within 5 years, BYU will be in the hunt for the.
I said 3 to 5, so whatever. Let's see. There was another question. Oh, here we have a question on basketball. MH5 says, I don't know why the A4 or A5 in basketball isn't pushing to run their own tournament and bank that money for themselves. The possible revenue sharing it has to factor into these decisions. This goes back to a conversation that you started. What do you guys think about that?
It'll kill the NCAA. Do they want to kill the NCAA? People can think on their own on that. I think they don't. But just understand that by saying this, that means it will kill the NCAA because that survives on that basketball money. The NCAA takes a cut, the same cut that every school gets for participating in that tournament. The NCAA takes the same cut to basically pay all their overhead.
Anybody else want to comment on that before we go to another one? Please
I think
leave your comments and questions. We're answering them now.
I think that is a massive opportunity to make money. And Immaculate, you've kind of already said something about this, but like, what's the benefits of the NCAA now in major college sports? Like, what's the value add that they're providing?
I look at them generally as like an umbrella because I can't answer that and go, here's what they do here. Like legally, with government, when you look at the NCAA bylaws and just how long that is and how much they do, I just think it's a whole lot of work that the conferences don't want to do themselves. So as much as, there's a lot of money out there that they could possibly grab, they're going to then turn around and use that, administratively, have to expand their own, all of this themselves, do all this themselves, and answer directly for it. So to me, the NCAA is an umbrella, and that's probably the best simple answer that I can give to express how I feel about it.
Nightbot has entered the chat. I just wanted to say that. Nightbot says, become a member of the Big 12 Mafia family and get perks, including loyalty badges, preferred comments, and early access to videos. Click join on our homepage or visit Big 12 Mafia.
Hopefully Nightbot's nicer tonight than he was on Sunday.
He apologized.
he was in a mood to just start kicking people left and right.
There's another comment from MH5, and I think this is a good one too. If private equity gets involved in college athletics, the focus on academics will change for sure. Anybody disagree with that?
I think I so agree with this. Yeah. We're already there, though. That's what I'd say. I mean, forget private equity. We're already there. It's all about the dollar, and it's all about the war chest being built and as much money you can make at the conference level, at the school level, to soon pay players, because that's where we're going with this. Once collective bargaining agreements are signed and everything, schools will be paying players directly. It is moving that way, guys. It's going to happen probably sooner than later and stuff. And then the focus on money is going to get even more great because it's more important to pay bigger player salaries too. So we're already there. We're living there. We're moving that direction. Private equity, it's very interesting on how private equity can get involved because of the nature of the nonprofit of the university versus the private equity that typically wants ownership into the ventures they embark in. And so it'd be interesting to see what private equity would do. Maybe they'd give a loan, I guess, like a loan to a university, but they wouldn't necessarily have any rights in the athletic department because that's a nonprofit. So we're talking about two different kind of structures here. This isn't just normal like corporate America. These are universities, nonprofits. So it gets real hazy on what that could look like.
Is there a mechanism in any way, shape, or form that would allow college football as an entity to be bought?
Endowments.
No, the endowments are tied to the universities. I'm talking about college football.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, but just directly, no. But I mean, in terms of what he was saying, yeah, a lot of private equity can put money into a university in an endowment, and that could go towards multiple different things, and they can make it look like it's all separate, but it's all in the agreement of actually doing it.
I'm talking about like a sovereign wealth fund.
But actually buying conferences and all that? No, I don't think so.
Everything they create their own entity. They name it college football, and they buy all the college football rights for the top four conferences.
They could buy the media rights.
Yeah,
they can't have ownership in the university, or at the athletic department. They can't control the athletic department, but they could replace ESPN.
Yeah,
that's what they could do, and sell off the rights elsewhere and sublicense them. That's exactly probably what would happen. Actually, it's like, forget ESPN. We're going to jump in. We're going to buy the rights to a conference. We're going to sublicense it out to ESPN and Fox. That could certainly happen.
That's no different than a network coming in and doing that. It's just adding another competitor to the market.
Well, it is different though, because they're not in the business of being a media broadcaster. They're just in the business of owning college football broadcasting rights. So they sublicense those rights to whoever they want, but it's not quite the same as just a network coming in. And
Fox is doing kind of almost doing the same thing with the Big Ten right now. I mean, they're the primary, and then NBC and CBS are the secondaries. So I mean, we're kind of already getting there, and they're talking about doing the same thing with ESPN and the CFP. So I think what you're saying is right. I think that's possible. Now, in terms of those private equities dealing directly with the school, no, they would have to deal with the conference.
Moen, did you want to comment on that one?
No.
Okay. Sergeant Pickle says, Bomber, talking about me, how do these teams have regulatory entity in the future that isn't directly tied to TV networks? You basically end up with the NCAA 2.0.
We might actually see that coming this week. We might see some progress towards changing the NCAA. And after this week, we might see the building blocks of an NCAA 2.0. Like, honestly, not even just trying to hype it up, but in all seriousness.
Yeah, I think you'd create a different entity. Yeah, NCAA 2.0, we can name it that, but it'd be named something else, of course,
Right.
for the A4, but you'd have your own governance body. You create your own governance body based on the agreements between the A4 conferences and how that looks, and it'll probably mirror a lot of the NCAA. But the big idea there is just keeping the money and not sharing it with everybody else in the NCAA and giving the NCAA their piece. It's basically you'd be governing yourselves based on how you dictate the governance.
Anybody else? I think it's a great
I mean,
question.
yeah, I'm wanting to see what happens this week, and then hopefully
Okay.
we'll have more answers.
Yeah, these are
Scott-
dynamite questions. Seriously, like guys, like these are dynamite questions. That private
Stumpers.
equity question is so fascinating.
Scott White from Florida corrects me. I did say 5 initially, Scott. So you got to give me a little credit. I did say 5 Big 12 teams. Then I said, oh, wait, it's only 4 after these guys shouted me down in disdain and hate. But I appreciate you correcting them by saying Arizona, Utah, OSU, K-State, and KU were all in the top 25. Anybody want to throw anything down about that? I'm ready to go right now.
Yeah, I mean, 5 is good, but it also comes down to placement.
One of these schools.
I say the preseasons. I think the preseason.
Oh, I agree with you. I hate it.
Stupid.
I was
don't want. Let's
going
talk
off
about
on
next
it, and
December's polls.
I was going off on X about the whole rankings
Yeah, I hate that so much.
system. I mean, it's so old and antiquated. It has no place anymore.
Sergeant Bickle says, also, guys, I get that the Big wants all of the sports with the new schools, but I expect things like crew or water polo to transfer back to regional alignments. Pickles or Mo,
already
do you guys
exists.
have information on that?
Yeah, we've got water polo in the Big Ten. We've got some crew teams in the Big Ten. So we're probably the crew teams in the Big Ten aren't on par with Washington, but I think Minnesota has a crew team. Ohio State has a crew team. I believe Michigan has a crew team.
Is it a conference sport though? Does the
I
conference?
don't know that it's a conference level. It might be club
if it's
level.
not, then Washington, under current rules, could just take rowing and join any conference they want as a single sport member.
Good question.
Yep, it is. Kind of like how Notre Dame's a hockey member of Big Ten. It's because the ACC does not have hockey, so they're free to take hockey anywhere.
Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Sorry about that. I thought you were done there, Immaculate. No. BR says private equity can operate at the conference level. Yep. I think I said that back a month and a half ago when we talked about Florida State. Do you guys have any comments on that?
At a university level, it's go ahead if you want to go. I already talked about this once.
Yeah, so I think private equity can buy into like the naming rights of a conference if they wanted to, and they can negotiate possibly the media rights for a conference too. If you wanted to do that, there's a lot of things private equity can do. It's just like the nature of a lot of private equity and like hedge and like different funds is to try to get ownership into the entities they're investing in. And what makes this unique is that private equity wouldn't be able to necessarily have ownership in a university like a Florida State or University of Utah. They can't do that. And so it's kind of making these side investments, maybe at the conference level, and holding the grant of rights and stuff, and acting like an ESPN or being the namesake of a conference. That's really where they could be involved. But what's the return on your investment for the private equity? Could they do it better than ESPN? Could they do it better than Fox? Could they make more? I doubt it. So really, it's kind of hard to see where private equity could make a lot of money in this endeavor.
I would look at something like, we'll put this money forward towards helping you build this stadium. In return, we need this percentage of the receipts. And as long as, like, if it's a state school, probably just needs to get approval. But I could see them start to get in the door and something like that in terms of funding measures like that, funding improvements, because a lot of that stuff is kind of shady anyways, as it is. And that it's kind of the underbelly that no one really looks at and reports into as to how they fundraise for these major improvements.
A lot of it's loans through big banks. And
Uh-huh.
it's just your standard loans that you get that are just massive loans. And I think where private equity would like to step in is replace like your normal lenders, like a Chase Bank, giving a loan to a
Right.
university, for example. And then the private equity would stay, like, just step in there and provide the loan for a return. So there's
think
just
about it.
ways. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it could be along with a licensing agreement, right?
Yeah.
They could give you a low interest or no interest loan, but on all your stuff, you have their logo and their. I could see a lot of that brand support
Yeah, you can
and
get creative
advertising
with
be
that.
involved in that.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. Anybody else want to talk on this one? There's so many questions. It's
No,
hard
but I
for
want
me
to go
keep
back
up.
to the last one. I just told
Oh
rowing
yeah, please
is
do.
rowing is a conference sport within the Big Ten. We have 3 national championships in it.
Okay.
From
You
2013
replied. I
to
did see that.
2015,
There it is.
Ohio State won the national championship in rowing.
Okay.
So
And if
there's
anybody
6
to know it,
teams then,
you-
because I think we need 6 in order for it to be supported.
There has to be. It says it's been a sport since 2000.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's see. Timothy Green says, please everyone like and subscribe. Thank you very much. We appreciate everybody who's still watching. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter and then subscribe on YouTube. Consider becoming a member of the Big 12 Mafia family. And we have a lot of stuff going around in here, and we really want to involve as many aspects of college sports as we can. There's 4 of us. We hope to cover a quarter of what Greg Flugar covers all by himself. Let's see here. Let me get to a few more questions. Ryan Willie says Wisconsin has crew. Let's see here. More comments. Timothy Green says, Sergeant Pickles, congratulations on making it to the national championship. I think that is a big deal nowadays.
Mhm.
I think
It's
it's
a huge
definitely a
deal.
big deal. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would have to agree.
That's
I'm a
brand value
Washington
that
fan.
sticks with you long term.
It really does.
Yeah.
It'll
People
change.
will
You know,
remember
this is actually a question I wanted to bring up, and I keep forgetting about it. This idea that you went to a New Year's Six bowl, isn't that nonsense at this point?
Yes.
People
I
don't
think
really-
it's a
Teams getting
ridiculous
paid,
title. I
But
think
you
it's a
get
ridiculous
paid a lot
title.
more.
You
But you
might.
get
That's
paid a lot
fine. I don't
more.
care what your payout is. It's a ridiculous title.
It's not memorable. Like people
It's
aren't
been
remembering.
ridiculous for a long
who's-
time.
I mean,
to be
tell me who
honest.
was in. Can you tell me, like, just offhand, who was in the New Year's Six bowls last year, the year before
It
that?
doesn't matter.
But we could go
matter.
through and like people would remember who was in the CFP
Mhm.
this year and last
Yes.
year and the year before. So there's a
Absolutely.
recognition with that. Like you were one of that 4, but the rest of it's just it's pure money.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the college football playoff kind of wiped out the importance of a New Year's Six game. And going forward, the 12-team playoff is just going to further erode it too. So really, they're going to become less and less important. The New York Six game is
At some point, we're going to quit calling them bowls. We're going to quit calling them bowls, and we're just going to call them featurettes. Something very demeaning.
the one
'Cause all the
exception
bowl
really.
games are just, yeah.
There's one exception.
Go
That's
ahead.
the Rose Bowl, though. The Rose Bowl game is its own entity. The Rose Bowl game is a special game, no matter who's playing it. If it's in the CFP or not, it is its own. It's
I
the
know
Mecca
why
of
you say
college
that.
football.
That's not true.
I'm not.
Have you ever
Nobody
been to the
else
Rose
can-
Bowl, Bomber? Have you ever been to
Eh,
the Rose Bowl game?
I have been to the Rose Bowl. I went to Washington in 1991.
Was it
So-
during the Rose Bowl game or was it a UCLA game?
I have.
The Rose Bowl game.
No, it was the
Parade of
championship
Roses?
game. University of Washington.
Yeah. When
Oh,
I
God,
went to
I
the
never
Rose
went
Bowl
to
a
the
couple
Parade
years
of
back.
Roses.
Yeah, the Parade of Roses is a special experience. The Rose Bowl is a special thing. So that's the only thing I
It
would
needs
say
to be the
related to that.
championship game. We could solve that. Just make it the championship game and be done with it.
Yep.
Then you don't have any disagreements about it.
Yeah, that's what the CFP sells the rights to house that championship game to other places though. So that's why
Internet.
like this year was at Houston. I mean that they paid a lot to have that game there. So I just don't see the CFP changing that to where they don't sell that championship game anymore.
So you're saying you don't think they're gonna move it to the Rose Bowl?
Turn
Is that
like
what you're saying?
I don't think no. I mean that's people were trying to talk it into existence, but once it comes down to money, the CFP part of that payout is the money that they're getting from selling that location to places that don't have a bowl. Like, I mean, the city, the stadium, whoever's involved with paying for that to be there. It's a big chunk of change that they would lose.
It's not so much about the Rose Bowl to me. It's about what they used to represent and what they represent now.
Yeah.
And I think what they represent now is not the same as what they represented last year. Last year, the bowl games were much more significant by themselves. And this year, they lost a lot of that romance. That's all I was trying to say.
As a Big Ten guy who's
College
followed
football
the Rose
says,
Bowl.
Outlaw Posse and
Sorry, I was just going to add to that.
go ahead.
Right ahead.
I've got internet issues. Just go ahead, Immaculate. Go ahead.
As part of the Big Ten, I would even say like I don't even pay that much attention to who's the Rose Bowl winner now. Like it just doesn't mean the same to me. You know, that I'm not sure there's other Big Ten people who feel differently. But I'm saying even that's losing its luster, and it's taking people making these big arguments to say how as good it is, and it is. It's still the best bowl, but bowls as a whole are losing their luster. So it's not the same as it used to be.
I can tell you, Utah fans love the Rose Bowl.
Of course, I know. Absolutely.
The Utah fans love the
of
Rose
course you
Bowl.
would.
I get it.
Yeah,
Utah
they're
has a
Pac
special
fans.
history with that bowl, not just as a Pac team, but even going further back.
What?
Wasn't Utah in
No.
when that was there was a bowl? Who did they play at?
I think
When
Immaculate's
Smith
right.
was
That Utah has
QB.
a special history.
No,
with the
they
Rose
beat
Bowl.
Alabama. They beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. I think that's what you're thinking of, Immaculate.
Why? I'll look it up
They
another
did.
time. I don't want to hold it. No, I know. I'm not doubting that.
Yeah, Utah's never.
I'm
they've been there twice.
I'm going back before even their time in the Pac.
Yeah, I
all good.
can't think. If you let me know if they were in there in the 40s, I'm sure Utah would claim it.
Go ahead. I'll look up stuff. Go ahead.
The Rose Bowl's an amazing
Let's see
game.
here. Outlaw of College Football says Outlaw Posse in the house. Woo. Woo. I can't give that. I have my internet screwing up. Somebody else say woo for me. There we go. No one wants to play in Southern California, especially anything close to LA or San Francisco. That's what Outlaw says. Has West Virginia ever been to the Rose Bowl? Outlaw?
No one wants to play in
many
Southern
schools
California. I don't think so. I
Not
don't
many
think
people
so.
have played there. Let's see here. Timothy Green says, in my games in general do not have the integrity they used to have at one time. Derek Edwardson says there needs to be a bowl game at Lambeau Field. As the last person living near Green Bay, I would go to it. That sounds fun to me. Let's see here. Sergeant Pickles, I do hope the Rose Bowl gets the same renovations the Cotton Bowl is due for. UCLA either needs a nice 40,000 stadium or on campus or just play at SoFi. Why doesn't UCLA just play at SoFi?
Yeah, what's the SoFi?
They have a contract with the Rose Bowl. I believe there's 9 more years left on it.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Let's see here. Tony Lawson's in the house. Good to see you, Tony. He says, Derek, I agree. January 1st is a Florida team versus the Texas team every year at 10 degrees at the Lambeau Bowl. We'll call it that.
Yeah, that'll happen.
This is, I would agree with this. Utah and BYU
right.
both had a special history in the Holiday Bowl. That is true.
I don't know what you guys were talking about.
They
You guys
both
need to go
played
back
very
to the
well.
record
I was thinking
books.
back to the Wisconsin game a ways back, but that wasn't that one. There isn't
another game. There
was two Rose Bowls recently. You're right.
It was
See, Bomber knows
your
his Utah
dreams,
Rose Bowl
in your
history over here real well as a BYU fan.
I do. Believe me. Just like I have the national championship history. Let's talk about that. That'll be a different show, maybe. We can go back and forth. Sergeant Pickles says, Derek Edwardson, the Frozen Tundra Bowl, where every game is transported back to 1957. They don't heat the ground. They don't melt the snow off or get rid of the ice.
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah,
actually.
just imagine the
Um,
tourists coming from the south trying to drive in that weather. You might as well just give up. Everybody will be going to work in snowshoes.
That's true.
Kind of like Houston this year.
Ryan Willie says Bulls don't mean poop anymore. There are too many. Outlaw says I'm an Alabama fan, and yes, my team was in the Rose Bowl way back in the 1920s until now. You're right, Outlaw. I was thinking of somebody else with Outlaw in their name. I apologize. You are an Alabama fan. I want to recognize that. Alabama's played in the Rose Bowl a few times, haven't they?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I thought they had. Well, he says the 20s. I thought they'd done it sooner, like closer to us.
They have.
Maybe I'm wrong.
They have recently because it's one of the college football playoff bowls.
That's what I thought. I thought they.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think they've done more. Let's see. Sergeant Pickles says Outlaw Bama has the most Rose Bowl wins of any non-Big Pac team. Thank you, Pickles, for answering that question. Moen had also done it. Let's see here. Eskimo guest tonight. All right, Eskimo, tell us why you're all dolled up. How you feeling tonight?
I feel like shit, but I'm here. I made it. I got a hole in my neck now. Check out that
What happened
sweet.
to you?
Oh,
I had a thyroid biopsy.
he had a
Oh,
biopsy.
man.
He had a
Yeah, they
biopsy.
jabbed me 5 times, so feels like I got punched in the neck by Mike Tyson.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You know, I felt that. It's not fun. Sergeant Pickles says Bama has 5 Rose Bowls in 8 games, plus a tie. All right, I think that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks to everybody who've been here tonight. We like this question and answer time. We're going to have to try to add it to our future shows. It's good times when we take your questions along with our super chats. Let's do a reverse checkout. Immaculate. Why don't you tell everybody where to find your stuff and what you do?
Well, as many of you know, I'm Immaculate View on Twitter. I'm expecting this week to be quite heavy. We are getting started with the convention, the NCAA convention here from Wednesday till Friday. So expect a whole lot of news coming about that, and we'll be reporting about that on Twitter X and on here. Next.
Very good. Moen.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on here so many days a week. Moen After Dark Sundays at 8 p.m. with my co-host Immaculate. And sometimes we have some friends drop by. We had Greg on Sunday. Sunday prior to that, we had Numbskull News stop by. So feel free to join in. We love interacting with Chad over there.
That we do.
And Outlaw, that's who I was thinking of as Numbskull. So I apologize. Hey, when are you going to have me back on your show, by the way? It's been a minute. I want to come over there and be on your show again. Wild Ute.
Yeah, find me on X at the Wild Ute. Let's talk about realignment. Let's chat about financial topics here when it comes to college sports. That's where I kind of focus in on. So let's keep the dialogue going, and we'll see you on the Friday show here for the Big 12 Mafia show. And Bomber, you've got a show coming up tomorrow too, right?
We do, yeah. We got a show tomorrow night. I think it's just going to be me and Moen, and I have a guest coming, but they haven't confirmed. So we'll make sure we have somebody, because you don't just want to listen to us talk. So somebody else will be with us. Just watch Twitter and follow our conversations, and you should be able to see who the next guest will be. The top 3, and I want to call out one more time, the champion of our college football bowl pick'em. Let me bring that up so we give that proper attention again. I apologize. I should have had it ready. That would be, there we go, Bobby Moonsball. I will send you a mini BYU football helmet, and then also I will send out rally flags to you. Let's see, Clark Dean and Philip Porter. Clark Dean and Philip Porter, please get on Twitter and DM me your address, and I'll get those prizes out to you guys. Anyways, other than that, anybody else want to say something before we get out of here?
Go Utes.
Go Utes. I love it. Go Utes. Go Cougs.
Go Hawks.
Hawks. And
Ohio State's winning the portal.
I think, doesn't Ohio State win everything?
Oh, I was
obviously
winning,
not.
keeping their players.
All right. Well, anyway, everybody stay out of trouble. Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.